Welcome to Otherworld. I'm your host, Jack Wagner. This week's episode is about something that I'm pretty sure most people have heard some version of before. It's a person that remembers their past life, or at least that's what they think it is. They have memories from before they were born that do not match the life they currently live. And I'd say that most of the time when I've heard something like this, it involves a little kid saying weird stuff. They're talking about an old relative that does not exist, saying generally strange things, as a lot of children do. I've only heard these stories secondhand before. And even with the secondhand stories, I'd be a little suspicious putting something like that onto the show if it's just something that a little kid said. But when this person wrote me about what happened to them, I realized that I was dealing with something very different, and I think you'll understand why once you hear the story. I think this topic is very interesting. It's one of those things where I'm very grateful that somebody wrote in about this, and I'm super excited to potentially tell more stories of this type on the podcast because, quite frankly, I don't know what it is. I think it's one of those where cultures apply their own framework to explain this topic, but it could be a lot of different things. So I'm grateful to have this story. I think you're all going to really enjoy it. This comes from a person named Jadyn. The title is My Other Sister, and you're listening to Otherworld.
Hello?
Bobby?
Yes, it is.
You still rolling?
Yeah, let us know when you're ready.
Okay.
Feel free to ask some questions. You tell me Samoa in the Pacific Island can be superstitious.
This is a story about...
Just like comes out like that.
My name is Jadyn. I'm 26. I live in Calgary, Alberta. I work at a doggy daycare. I have a dog named Wasabi. My family owns a bowling alley, and I grew up in just like a very typical life, I would say. I went to a public school, and I grew up going to church a little bit, but it wasn't super, we weren't like a super religious family. We definitely did church for Christmas and everything and talked about God and all that when I was younger, but it wasn't anything like super strict and anything like that. But when I was younger, I used to talk about God a lot with my family, and I would tell my mom that I would say super weird things, and she would always get a little bit uncomfortable. I would always talk about how like I barely remember what heaven looks like and how I remember playing basketball with baby Jesus. And I would talk about like my angel friends and stuff. And it didn't bother her too much, but I started talking about how I had died previously. And I do still remember a little bit. I remember dying in 1983, 13 years before I was born. I was in the car with my dad and my sister, and the radio was on. It was the new year, and it was talking about like, let's kick off 1983 to like a good start, and talking about like people's goals for the year. And I was playing with a bouncy ball with my sister in the back of the car. And I don't really know what significance that has with it, but that's what I remember. And then all of a sudden, we hit a wall, and that's it. This happened in Regina. That's where I was born. We would drive around, and when I was like 3 years old, I would point at random things and be like, oh, that's my grandparents' house. My mom would be like, that's not where your grandparents live. No, not these grandparents, my old grandparents. And I would randomly announce at the intersection where I remember dying that, like, this is where my daddy died. And she'd be like, your dad's not dead? I'm like, not this daddy, my last daddy. And then I would talk about my sister. Now, I don't have any sisters. I have two brothers. But I would talk about my sister all the time. And I was always so excited when I would get to see her. She would come and play with me sometimes. And it was really wonderful. My sister was older than me. I would say she was probably 10 when she died, or when we died. I don't know. She was blonde and had curly hair, like ringlet curls. It was really cute. And she was wearing a blue dress the day we died. I remember that. And that's how she always comes to me when I see her now and when I saw her when I was younger. I don't know. My mom used to always get kind of confused because I would talk about things that I never experienced. I would talk about, or I guess things that I did experience, but she didn't know of. But I used to tell her all the time about playing basketball with baby Jesus and how I could barely remember what heaven looked like. And she thought it was cute, but like I would bring it up often and unprompted as well.
How old were you talking about playing basketball with Jesus, baby Jesus?
I used to do this when I lived in Saskatchewan. So like I said, we moved before I was 4. So from basically the time I could speak until I was like 3.5, I used to talk about this. Playing basketball with baby Jesus. I don't know. Basketball has never been my sport. So it's a very weird thing for me to decide that I did.
I know. I'm also wondering, like, how old is Jesus hooping up there? Are we talking like
he was baby? I don't know.
Newborn baby Jesus? Is this like toddler?
I don't remember that part in particular. I barely remembered it when I was 3. I don't know. But my mom my mom tells me that story all the time because she thought it was so cute. But and how I barely remembered what Jesus looked like or what heaven looked like. And but yeah, she would always get very upset when I talked about dying. And talking about how my dad died with me and talking about how my sister died. And like I said, I don't have a sister. So it bothered her a lot. That always bothered her. And she never looked into it because it scared her.
I wish I'd kept better track because, of course, it was a while ago. But she was probably about 2 or 3. I'm saying probably closer to 3 for sure. And it was before 4. I know because we moved when she was 4, before she turned 4. So it was probably when she was 3. And she would just say random things like, well, I think she told you, and she said that she could hardly remember when she used to live in heaven. And she goes, how did she say that? She goes, I can, or just something like, I can hardly remember heaven when I used to live there. She'd say stuff like that, like just out of the blue, she'd just say something and like that. And then she'd say, I'm sure she told you the basketball with baby Jesus.
Yeah.
She said she used to like playing basketball with baby Jesus. She said that. And then she'd say, I remember then later on, she'd kind of look out our front window and she'd go, oh, there's my friend, Annie. And I thought it sounded like Annie to me. And then I thought there was lots of kids in the neighborhood. I thought it was a friend or whatever. So I'd look outside and there was nobody there. She'd go, oh, she's gone. She's gone. And then she started saying that was her sister. But of course we'd never see her. She'd just, oh, there she is. Oh, she's gone. She'd point out the window or she'd point somewhere and then she was gone. And then and this would be all spread out. Like she'd just say one random thing and then she wouldn't say anything for another couple weeks or whatever. And then, I guess she told you then about the car accident spot where she said we were driving and she goes, oh, this is where I died.
Well, do you remember that happening? Or is it just from her?
Yeah, so we were driving along in this intersection. She goes, oh, here's where I died. Or here's where my family died, or me and my family died. And it's like, what? And she goes, oh, not you, my other family. Because I must have looked kind of upset. She's like, no, not you, my other family. And then she just, sits there all calm. But she's like 3, so I didn't know what to say. I didn't ask her any more questions. I probably should have, but I just would kind of go, oh, okay. And I'd let it go because it was very weird. Stuff like that. Yeah. So she did say that at a certain intersection in Regina. then the other thing, later on, then she would point out and she'd go, oh, my grandma and grandpa used to live there. And she just kind of point this direction kind of near that intersection. And then nobody we knew ever lived down there. So she just kind of point over there. Oh, yeah, that's where my grandma and grandpa used to live. I was like, oh, okay, that's not where your grandma and grandpa live, but okay, whatever. And unfortunately, I found it a little creepy, so I didn't pursue it. I didn't ask her any questions. I didn't say much about it. She'd say random things, and we'd just go, oh, okay, sure. And we just didn't pursue it too much. So, she did that probably for about that, like probably that whole year she was 3, probably in that time.
So you have other kids. I mean, like, were they saying weird stuff? Like when did this separate from like, oh, this is more than just like a little kid saying stuff?
Well, I think because she'd say one thing and then like 3 weeks later she'd say something else. And so it took a while for it to kind of go, oh, wait a minute, she keeps talking about the same kind of thing. And then she would bring up the girl lots. Like that would happen lots. She would talk about her friend or her sister and that she sees her all the time. And so it probably took a little while before I clued in that it seemed like it wasn't just random little statements. And I don't think she was doing it to get a reaction out of us, because I don't think we were reacting very much about it. Like, I think I usually just kind of went, oh, okay, great. And then just let it go. So, but I could have maybe asked her more. I don't know.
Did you ever have a conversation with her about it where you're like, hey, what is this stuff? Even like later in life?
Yeah, later in life, we definitely talked about it, because I'd say to her, do you remember that? And she would, and then she would say, I think she said to me later on that she still would see this little girl, but she never told me about it again later. Like as she got a little bit older, I think she didn't talk about it to me very much. She said later on, like when she was, older, that she still saw that little girl. Like after we moved, so she just turned 4 when we moved, and then I didn't hear her say too much about it after that. We did talk about it later. Like I'd asked her if she remembered saying any of those things and if she remembered talking about that stuff. So yeah, I did mention to her later, and I did think about even after we moved, thinking, I should look it up and see if I can find anything about that intersection, or sometime, I don't know what you'd look up around when she was born, or just that intersection. I don't know. I don't recall her saying names, like other than Annie, which it sounded like Annie to me, unless it was Amy, or she was little, of course. So she would call the little girl Annie, I thought. But yeah, she didn't say other names really.
Is there anything else that I should know or you want to add?
Yeah, no, like it was like sporadic, and it probably went on for about a year, but it wasn't like daily. It was every once in a while she'd just bring something up. And I'm sure maybe I've forgotten other instances. Unfortunately, I didn't write notes. I probably should have, but I didn't. So, and I do remember talking to my sister-in-laws about it, and they're like, "Oh, you should look that up." And it's like, "Oh, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing that." But
yeah.
So we did tell people. Like I did tell a few people at the time, but I don't think nobody really pursued it.
So with the memory of the car crash, can you tell me a little bit more about it? And how this fits into your brain versus like a weird dream or something like that. I know that this is something that probably people are going to have a hard time believing.
Yeah, when I think about the accident, I remember I was sitting in the back passenger seat. My sister, it was in a car. So it was like the bench seat in the back. So I was in the back passenger side seat. When I looked to my left, I could see my sister in the back seat next to me, and my dad was driving. Like I said, my sister had blonde hair, like the really beautiful, like gold blonde hair. Like if you imagine Goldilocks as a human, that's what she looks like. And my dad had light brown hair and a mustache. And the radio was playing. We had a little car scent thing hanging on the back review mirror. And yeah, it was snowing out. And I remember it just like I would a memory. I have weird dreams, but when I dream third person, so I can see myself. in this memory, I can't see myself. So that's how I know it's a memory. Every single dream is like I'm watching a movie, and I'm one of the actors. But in my memories, it's from my point of view. And that's how I remember being in the car. And I don't know if that explains it any better.
How old were you in the car crash?
I can't see myself, but I know my sister was older than me, so I would guess 7. I know, and I don't know how I know, but it's just like a feeling. Like I just know that she was my big sister. I don't know, 6 or 7 is my guess.
Got it.
Yeah, but she looks like she's 10.
How old were you when you first knew about the crash?
Well, it was just a memory, so it was just kind of always there. I think I started talking about it probably when I was 2, or when I could kind of start making comprehensible sentences. But it was just kind of there. My mom didn't really tell me about it until I was a bit older. And I always assumed it was a dream or something. Then she was like, "Oh, I remember you talking about that." And I was like, "Oh." Or like, I don't know. I was a very imaginative kid. So I thought maybe I had just made it up. But I didn't talk about my imagination with my family unless I was like telling a story. And there was usually like unicorns and these ridiculous things. I was a kid. Why would I make up dying? It's a very weird, morbid thing for a child to do.
Are there any other times you remember seeing her?
I remember seeing my sister a lot when I lived in Saskatchewan. I would have little tea parties, and it would be like with my like teddy bears and dolls and her. And I would see her all the time. And I had this tricycle. I named it Wobbly because I would fall off it all the time. But she would always run beside me when I was riding that tricycle. She was just there all the time. Like whenever I was playing something, she was just there. And like I was fully aware that nobody else could see her. And like to me, she wasn't an imaginary friend. I had imaginary friends, but she wasn't. I couldn't see my imaginary friends, and I could see her. So we moved in 2000 to Calgary, little town outside of Calgary, and I started seeing her less and less. I started only seeing her when I was doing kind of reckless things, and I was not like a girly girl. I played with my brothers. All my best friends were boys. We played rough. So I saw her only when we were, being kind of reckless. One of the most distinct memories I have of her is I was 6 years old. And my dad had built us this like play fort in the backyard, and it had monkey bars. And the second rung was loose. And I hated going on it because I would always slip, and it kind of scared me. And so I decided to skip that second rung, try to like skip the bar. And my arms were not long enough, and I fell and I hit the ground and I broke my arm. I didn't scream or cry or anything right away. I never really have, but I felt a cold hand on my back, and I turned around and it was her. And I didn't see her very often at this point anymore. And usually only in the distance. And I had convinced myself that she was kind of made up. And then I saw her and I screamed, and I was so scared and so confused because she was there. Like she wasn't transparent. It wasn't like a shadow. I could see her. And she looked so worried. And then my mom opened the back door to come into the yard after I had screamed, and then she just disappeared. And she was just gone. And I didn't see her for so long after that. And I didn't tell anybody about that because I was 6. I was like, I know when things kind of sound crazy. So I didn't say anything.
What did she look like? You turned around, like, can you describe her, like everything you can remember?
Yeah. Like she was 10 years old still. She had her blonde hair. in her blue dress. She had a little bow around her waist. And yeah, she just looked worried. Like, just so worried. Like you could tell that, like in her eyes, you could kind of feel that she was like there to make sure I was okay. And then when I screamed, she looked almost offended. If that kind of makes sense, like she was conscious of what I was doing. That's how I feel anyways. I feel like she was aware of my feelings and I hurt her feelings in the act of it. Yeah, that's just, yeah, she was kneeling down right behind me, kind of like crouching, and hand just like flat right in the center of my back. I was scared. Like I said, like I had kind of, I didn't see her very often at the time. And like I saw her only when I was doing really reckless things. But like also like she had never touched me. That was the first time I ever felt her. And so it went from being like oh, maybe I've just kind of made her up and I'm just like, I know I'm doing something scary, so I'm picturing her, to I've just been touched by this thing. It must be real. So it was a scary moment. And I had just broken my arm. So that was double scary. So yeah.
When you say you would see her doing reckless things, like before this happened, did you have times where you would see her?
Yeah, like we would like, like climbing trees or something on like a tree that probably shouldn't have been climbed, like thin branches or something. I would kind of see her off in the distance. Just kind of watching, but in my mind, I just kind of decided she wasn't actually there. It was like some other random kid or whatever, but she was always wearing a blue dress. Or like, yeah, we would like ride bikes or sit on skateboards and like go flying down hills and stuff. And remember kind of, again, seeing her off in the distance in those moments. But yeah, just doing like the typical outdoors, ridiculous things back in the early 2000s when parents didn't have to watch over their kids every second.
What would you think of it at the time? Like when you would see her, like how would you kind of like process that? Like seeing this girl, what would you think?
Well, half the time I would just kind of assume it was a random person. I do remember kind of thinking it was odd that it was always a person wearing a blue dress. But like, I think I just kind of thought either it was a random person or, I don't know, just kind of assuming it was something like that. So when I was 9, I went to a camp, and it was like an outdoors ranch camp kind of thing. There was so much to do. There were these big rock walls and horseback riding and archery ranges, and you could just like really be like you could be outdoors and had a lot of fun. But we did this rock wall that we could climb up to the very top and then rappel back down. And I've always loved heights. Like I've never been scared of falling. I like feeling really high up. But I wanted to go down head first. And so we had to have our right hand behind our back and our left hand holding the rope above us. And then we would just lay right back down. And I had put my hands in the wrong order. So my left hand was behind my back. And I wasn't moving because I was holding it wrong. So I wasn't able to slide at all. And so they were like, okay, so take your right hand and move it behind your back and then switch. But I, for some reason, just let go. Like instead of, grabbing onto the rope to hold myself up, I just let go and I started just free falling. And she appeared again and she was falling with me. Her head was also down and she just looked horrified. She was so upset. And then she didn't say anything. She just looked super, super scared. Thankfully, the adult that was holding the rope at the bottom kind of ran out and ended up sliding into him, and I didn't hit the ground. But yeah, I kind of clicked in then that she was there in my time of need kind of thing, I guess. This was also like a Christian ranch camp. So there's lots of religion and talk about angels and stuff there. So I feel like that was another reason she was there so like vividly in that moment. But yeah, she just watched me and just looked so scared. And like I didn't scream or anything. I was just falling. I was like, here we go. Little roller coaster, I guess. She was wearing a blue dress again. The only like her hair wasn't moving as you would expect somebody who is like falling would. Her hair was still-ish. Like it had movement, but it wasn't like it was rushing through the wind. But yeah, she was still wearing her blue dress. It's always a blue dress. Yeah, and then as I started getting older, like I said, I only really saw her doing like something really stupid. But nothing like I don't really remember any like distinct moments as a kind of between then and when I was like 16. Like the most vivid moments I have from when I was little were breaking my arm and the rock wall incident. And then it was, like I said, like when I was younger, like I said, like she was just kind of off in the distance. So again, I would only ever see her doing kind of stupid things. Like if I was out walking in the streets in the middle of the night, right? Like sometimes I would see her there and I would kind of feel uneasy, like something bad was going to happen. Or, I don't know. She always just gave me a feeling of like, you shouldn't be doing this. Whenever I saw her as like a young teenager, it was usually, yeah, like when I was with my friends and stuff, I would, see her and be like, hey guys, we should really stop doing this. Let's go back to wherever we were supposed to be, or, that kind of thing. Not that I was like a super irresponsible kid. I just often had not the greatest ideas, I guess. Like I was always the one who was like, oh my gosh, it's the middle of the night. Let's go play tag in the streets. Like I grew up in a small town, so it wasn't a horribly dangerous thing to do, but still not a good idea. And I would see her off in the distance for those kind of things. And like walking through the woods late at night, I would see her then, and just doing things that are generally just not great ideas.
To her, or like to you, was she always like your sister, guardian angel figure? Or did you ever find yourself kind of like wavering with being like, oh, maybe I was just imagining that type of thing?
I did when I was younger. I kind of thought I was imagining it when I was younger. And then as I got older, I started to notice every time I saw her, something bad did happen. Whether it was like somebody would like fall or something and kind of like twist their ankle or something. Like it wasn't always like really bad things, but just kind of like it preventable. Like just if we hadn't been doing it or hadn't been doing it that way, like we wouldn't have had as bad of an outcome. So yeah, I guess like falling down a tree or something, or I fell down lots of trees, or like biking, like falling off your bike or something, like you're going too fast, right? Like, I don't know, things like that. It was nothing like super notable. Just she was there when inconvenient things were about to happen, I guess. So when I was like 16 or 17, I was in a really horrible relationship. We were only together for about 7 months, but I started seeing her a lot more. He was like kind of aggressive. I wouldn't say he was abusive necessarily, but he would black out and do things that were mean. He would like say really awful things and then he wouldn't remember, but she would always be there kind of like trying to shoo me away right before he would black out, like kind of like with her hands, kind of like, the little shoe motion. She would do that to me. I met him at a party. We were at like a party with a friend of mine, and he went to a different school, so I hadn't met him there, but my other friend, he was like, "Want to come to this party with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And that's where I met him. He was a really fun guy. Like, he was a lot of fun. He was very funny, super easy to talk to, but like annoying. I guess he would get on people's nerves a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I liked him, I guess. And then after we were in a relationship, that's when he kind of started getting weirder, I guess. But yeah, he would black out when he would get mad and say like really horrible things to me. But I often didn't even quite realize that he was in that state until she would kind of start shooing me away. And then I would get scared because I was like, okay. One time she shoved him and he fell over. And that was when I kind of realized that she could interact with others as well. Yeah, and that's when it like really, really did hit me that she was there. He didn't remember any of this at all, so I felt really crazy when he came to, and I kind of tried to explain what happened, because he had like his hands were all cut up from the fall and stuff, and trying to explain it to him, he made me feel very very crazy. But yeah, he fell when she shoved him, and it was crazy.
Wait, when he would black out, are you meaning like drinking?
No, he would just get so angry that he would not be aware of what he was doing. And when he came to, he wouldn't remember.
What would he get angry about?
Literally anything. Like, one time it was, I had been talking to the friend of both of ours that introduced us. One time it was, I looked at my phone when we were together one time when he did that. One time it was, he was talking about his father and got so mad about it. I don't think I even said anything to him. He was just talking about his father and got super angry, and that happened then as well. So it was like really random things.
Jadyn, you said you weren't sure if you should use the word. I could tell you right now, you're describing an abusive relationship.
I know.
Wait.
I know. It wasn't a physically abusive relationship is more what I was thinking. But he was he was an interesting human.
Can you tell me the full story of like what led up to her when she pushed him?
He had been drinking that night. I wasn't, and I think what happened was I got upset with him for being drunk, I believe, and I just wanted to go home. Like, I was trying to leave. I didn't have my car, and I was just going to walk. It was probably like a half-hour walk from his house to mine. And I was just like, okay, I'm out of here. See ya. And he got really upset with that. So he grabbed my arm. I remember kind of yelling at him to like let go. I was trying to break up with him at the time because I was really mad. I was really scared. And he just kept saying no, he wouldn't let go of my arm. And so when I finally got away from him, he kind of shouted like, you can't leave. And then he like made a fist and was coming at me. And then she shoved him.
What did it look like when she everything? Like if you were describing the scene.
We were outside. It was dark. It was like nighttime. So we were out on the street because I had been trying to leave. He was under a street light. I was kind of off to the side. Had already been walking away. But yeah, he like kind of like left. It was like very like cinematic. He like left the light when he kind of like raised his fist, and she was off to the side, like again looking like worried. She's off to the side and kind of just like just appeared in front of me and just two-armed, like stiff-armed him, and he hit the ground pretty quick. Like I don't know, just like it was very cinematic. Like his arms went back, kind of torso fell. I don't know. I don't really know how else to explain it.
So he falls down, and then what happens next?
I ran home. I just left. I was scared, so I left. He moved shortly after that, and so I was able to break up with him after he was gone. And then I didn't see her for another probably 6 months. And then he came back to visit some friends. And so I avoided him the entire time. Yeah, he was in town and he lived up north. And he missed his bus to go back home. And yeah, we were 17. And it was me, my ex, my best friend, and the friend that introduced us. And I was going to drive him up to Edmonton. So it's about a 3-hour drive to just get on a bus. And if there was no bus there, I was just going to leave him there. And that was my plan. It happened on January 2nd, actually, the day we're recording.
Dude, what?
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That happened today. How many years ago? I was 17. Almost 10 years ago.
That's crazy.
8 years ago. Yeah.
This is not the first time this has happened.
Yeah, interesting.
On the show.
I didn't even realize. So yeah, so it was January 2nd. So yeah, the plan was to leave him at Edmonton. So we got into the car, we started driving. I told my parents I was staying at my best friend's house. My best friend told her parents she was staying at my house. I don't know where the boys said that they were, but anyways, yeah, we were driving. So it was snowing, as it does in January in Alberta. And we had been driving for about 15 minutes, and she appeared and said, "Accident." Kind of like whispered it, but like angry whisper. She just said, "Accident." And I don't remember her ever speaking before, but she spoke. And so I just kind of casually was just like, "I think we're going to get into an accident today." And all my friends were like, "Don't say that. Don't say that. We're going to be fine. Just keep going." So I did. I just kept driving. It wasn't like a super cold day, but like it started to rain. And when it's raining and snowing and it's January, the roads end up being very slippery. So we were driving. It was fine. Like the drive was fine. It was hard to see, but it wasn't too bad. It was about like 2.5 hours. And at this point, it started getting bad. Like the roads were getting blizzardy. Couldn't see really at all. The roads were super slippery. It started getting windy. And then she appeared again. And this time she yelled. And like she yelled seatbelts. It took me aback. I kind of jolted back a little bit. And then I was just kind of very like, is everybody wearing their seatbelts? Everybody was except for my ex. He was sleeping and he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. So I made my friends wake him up and tell him to put his seatbelt on. And he was stubborn about it. He didn't want to. And so like finally the guy in the back seat that was with him like made him like, "You need to put this on, put it on." I heard the click and my car started to slide. We hit the ditch and my car kind of turned sideways. We rolled 3 times and we ended up the passenger side down, completely sideways. And like my airbags didn't go off, nothing happened. And I could just see her standing in the ditch in front of the car, just shaking her head. Like she just looked so disappointed. But yeah, I think she was just like, she seemed like she was like defeated, and she just looked super sad that I hadn't been listening to her. And yeah, it took us a while to get out of the car. We checked everybody. I had punched myself in the face. My hand slipped off the steering wheel and just like knocked me in the face. My best friend had hit her head on the window, but like she wasn't bleeding, just kind of sore. My friend in the back seat got hit in the face with the windshield wiper, and my ex got a concussion. But other than that, like nobody was seriously injured. All of us kind of sore and everything. But yeah, we got out of the car, waited for help. An ambulance took my ex away, and my dad and my best friend's dad came up during the storm, very angry, to pick the rest of us up and take us back home. But yeah, I haven't really seen her too much since. I haven't seen my ex since. I've only ever seen her driving during storms and stuff, but like storms happen here in Alberta, so you're going to be driving through them every once in a while. And she's never spoken again. She's always just kind of been there, kind of looking. And I've been just really cautious every time I see her. I just try to be extra careful. Clearly something could happen. Haven't really seen her in the last couple of years, but yeah, I don't know. That's all, I guess.
You have a unique perspective because you have like, partly remember this like previous life, and you have like this other sister watching over you. Like, what do you make of all of this? And like, how do you think it changes your perspective of life versus most people?
I definitely believe in like more than just our realm, right? Like there is definitely a heaven or a version of heaven or whatever you want to say. Like there is more to this world than just what's on earth. I fully believe in ghosts. I've seen ghosts. I don't think she's a ghost. I do kind of consider her more of like an angel, I guess. I wouldn't consider myself an overly religious person. I definitely believe in God or something. But there's so many religions that we can't all possibly be wrong. That's my thought. There is more. I have so many other random stories now that I'm thinking of it. Like I have one friend whose grandmother is Indigenous and she's very spiritual. And I guess she saw a photo of me and just said, oh, she has one spirit that's really protecting her. I haven't met her grandmother. I'm scared to. But with this other friend of mine, I'll call her Missy. Missy and I were taking photos together, and there were orbs all around us, all around her, I guess. In these photos, there'd be orbs covering the side of her photo, and then there'd be one large one right by my head, but nothing else. When it was just her, the entire photo filled with orbs. My photo, just one. When we were together, one on my side, a bunch on her side. Her house was very haunted, and every time I went over, her mother would always tell me that the spirits would calm down when I was around. So I don't know if that has anything to do with Emmy is her name. I don't think I ever said her name, but it's Emmy is my sister's name. I have no idea if it had to do with Emmy or not, but yeah, things like that, I guess. I definitely believe in more. people can believe what they want to believe. I'm not here to convince anybody that there's anything else in this world. It might comfort people to think that there is, probably unsettling to think that there is for some people. I believe there's more, and it's comforting for me to think that I have family that is beyond this world, that's there to protect me. That's my thoughts on it. Anyways, I don't know if that really answered your question.
That was great. That was amazing. Just to expand on that, I mean, it's funny. You give a kind of you give sort of a common response that most people give to like religion or something bigger than, life. But it's interesting. Like you've seen with your own eyes, like many times, something that just does not fit into the rules of our world. Like, how do you square that? Like is there a part of you that still wonders, or is it like, oh, I'm confident, like I know for a fact that there's more?
I'm like pretty positive. Like, again, I don't know exactly which religion is right. I know I have my beliefs. But so many religions are so similar that it's hard to tell which one is right and which one is wrong when they're all following the basic practices, I guess. I think, like, for which religion people should follow, I think it's whichever one makes you a better person. You believe whatever you want as long as you're a good person. That's my thought. I'm not going to tell anybody that they're wrong. I don't want anybody to tell me that I'm wrong. My boyfriend right now doesn't really believe in any of it, and that's okay. It's whatever he wants to believe in. Whatever makes you, whatever makes you a better person. Yeah, I don't know. I am confident that there is something else. I just haven't quite figured out for myself what I necessarily believe in. I do believe that she is an angel, that she is watching over me, that there is somewhere beyond Earth where people go after they die. I don't know if it's everybody, but there are definitely some that get to go there.
All right. Thank you so much to Jadyn for telling us her story. Thank you to her mom for getting on the phone and telling me her side of things. And also, thank you to Jadyn's friend who spoke to me off the record and was able to confirm some of the stuff with the car accident. What an amazing story. I'm sure some of you guys are as curious as I am about that car accident. I did ask one of my friends, who's a professional librarian, to look around a bit for me. And I told Jadyn's mom that if she ever wants help, I'd be willing to try to poke around with her, because maybe there's articles out there. It's kind of hard, especially with old papers in a different country, but maybe there's something out there. If so, you'll be hearing from me again in the future. That's for sure. But with that being said, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. The title of this episode is My Other Sister, and you've been listening to Otherworld. Otherworld is executive produced and hosted by myself, Jack Wagner. Our theme song is by Cobraman. The soundtrack of this episode is by North Americans. Editing and engineering by Theo Schaefer. The artwork for our show is by Cul-de-sac Studios. This is an independent show, so please show us your support by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and telling your friends about the show. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at Otherworld Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Also, if you or somebody you know has experienced something paranormal, supernatural, or unexplained, you could send us the story at stories@otherworldpod.com. Also, we still have merch for sale. If you want to check that out, it's otherworldpod.com.